Now, as much as I love repairing the Xterra, you know, all we're doing is just getting it back to where it should be, which is effectively operational and running correctly. Well, I also want to do upgrades. I want to do some fun stuff. So today, that's what we're going to do. We're actually going to put in high intensity discharge by xenon headlights. Now, if you're a regular viewer, you remember that I went through a lot of trouble getting my headlights back to clear. They used to be kind of this yellowy film, awful color, and now they're nice and crystal clear. Well, now that they're clear, let's put some more powerful lights behind them. Now, I picked up the Kensun light kit, and it's effectively just a bi-xenon headlight, but there's a lot more wiring. So we need to put in 2 ballasts, a relay, and wire it all up. Now, this kit is, I think it was about 70 bucks, but I put a link in the description if you want to get the kit. If you do get that exact kit, then this is basically a direct follow along video. If you get a different kit, there might be some differences, so you know, don't hold me to how this is configured. So let's get started. What we're going to start with is I'm going to darken my garage, and I'm going to show you what the headlights look like right now. Okay, so I went ahead and darkened my garage as much as I could, and we're going to turn on the lights here. And here are my regular standard headlights. Now you'll notice they have kind of a tinge of yellow to them. That's just the color temperature, and they got a relatively bright beam. It's not terrible, but it certainly could be better. So let's go ahead and take a look at the kit that I bought, and let's get installing it. So here's the kit I bought. This is the Kensun. This is the 9007 kit, and this kit is a bi-xenon headlight. Okay, so these are the headlights here, and they actually will move in and out of this body to basically make it dim for your low beams and pop out for your high beams. Now, in this kit should come 2 ballasts like this here. So this has a ballast with a little plug out, and then it has another plug in. And then, so you're gonna have 2 of those, obviously, each side. Then it also comes with this relay kit. Now this relay kit is going to determine your high beams versus your low beams, and obviously give it the proper voltage and tell each bulb what to do accordingly. So effectively how this kit looks, and I'll show you what the directions in the Kensun manual look like, but also it's pretty straightforward. It looks kind of crazy, but you're gonna have power coming out straight from your battery into this relay, and you're also gonna have one of the plugs that plug in from your actual headlights out of your car into this, and that's kind of the inputs. That's what the car kind of gives to the whole setup. The rest is done to each individual bulb. So let me pull one of these apart here. Now to each bulb, this is going to plug into the ballast, and then this is going to plug into the bulb, and then it basically goes out of the ballast into the bulb, and then out of this directly into the bulb as well. So that's how it's going to be laid out. It sounds kind of crazy right now, but just bear with me, and once we start setting it up, I'll kind of walk you through each step. Now the first thing we're going to do is remove the battery. I'm going to start on the passenger side, mostly because most of the connections are over here, and we're just going to run wiring over to the other light to kind of hook it up separately, the ballast and the headlight, that is. So just start by taking off your negative battery cable, and that's just going to be a 10 millimeter. Next, you want to take off your positive post, and that's going to be a 10 millimeter here and a 12 millimeter here. Now, I haven't taken this one off before. You actually don't need to take this off. This is just holding on to this second post so you can mount this big old thing on it. So now on the positive side of the battery, it's actually just a 12 millimeter nut that goes over top of this. This was here, this slid on, and then you had the nut. Just take that off, and that will actually disconnect everything you need to take away for the battery. And then these are likely going to be 10 millimeter, but let me verify. Yep, so those are all 10 millimeter as well. And then I'm actually going to remove the entire battery, so that way we have all the space that we need to install the ballasts and all the extra stuff. once your battery is out, you should really take a look at your posts and all of the connectors on the battery. Mine are actually looking pretty rough. This is something that can really help you avoid issues in the future. So get yourself like a little wire brush or something. They're pretty cheap at Harbor Freight, just like 99 cents or something. And just kind of scrub these off and clean them, since this is really a great opportunity to do so. You can see that I've taken off the posts in the past, the negative post, and I've kind of brushed that out, so that looks pretty good. But you can get yourself a battery terminal cleaner, battery terminal brush, or just any old wire brush should do it. So here's the actual headlight, and we can go ahead and if we want, we can probably just remove that right now. And you do that by just turning this piece here, this white kind of clip, and should just slide right out. There we go. And then on the back side, we just have a single clip. There we go. Push down on this, and it should come right out. So there's our main connector to one of the bulbs, and then of course the bulb itself is now out. And what you may, hopefully you can see this, here is, this is a dual filament bulb. And if you have a dual filament bulb, which you should, if you have an Xterra, this means that you need the bi-xenon kit. Effectively, you have one bulb that handles your high beam, and one bulb, and the same bulb handles your low beam. Now, if you have dual beam headlights, if you're watching this and you don't necessarily have an Xterra, then you may need a different kit, not necessarily a dual or bi-xenon like we have here. So set that aside. You're probably going to need this clip, so keep that, and you can set this aside, and then we're going to figure out a place to put our ballast and our relay. Now I want to mention a quick side note. So obviously we talked about corrosion on the battery posts, but if you take a look at the bottom of my battery tray, there's a plastic piece that just lifts up. So if you take that out, you'll see that my battery tray is pretty corroded, and this really bothers me. I really don't like finding stuff like this. So I'm actually going to take some time out, and I'm going to clean all this up, probably just kind of mask it off with some cardboard and paint this. It really bothers me to find all this. So I'm going to do that, but I also found a mounting place for the first ballast. And so I'm going to grab the camera here and I'll show you. Now, here's this is your antifreeze retention tank, and here's your positive battery posts. The tank itself, let me get all this out of the way here. The tank itself has a little, just basically mounting bracket that is screwed into the body. So I actually just took out that screw and then slid the bracket underneath and then screwed it back in. And that holds my ballast in place. So that's great, pretty easy. So I'm gonna take care of this battery tray, but then we'll get right back to it. We're gonna find a place for our relay, and then we are going to hook everything up. Now here's what I've done so far. Now I showed you where I put the ballast, and the other part of this, at least on the passenger side around the battery, is your relay. And so here's where I put the relay. Now where this starts to curve, this upper support, there is a hole. It's a decent sized hole. I don't know exactly what size it is, but I just found a random metal screw that I had lying around, and I was able to secure this relay up to this curve. Now, obviously, I'm not showing you this angle, but if I'm looking down, I can see that my battery tray, there's a solid probably 2 or 3 inches. So I know that I'm going to have clearance here. And obviously, it's also below this bar. So if you look up at your hood, you know that it's not going to hit. So everything's fine here. I went ahead and put in this metal screw, but as an added precaution, I took a zip tie and I zip tied it around this upper support. You really want to make sure that this is secure. And the reason I say that is that this is going to control everything. So if something goes wrong with this, like let's say this works its way out and it falls down and it gets hot, or it melts sitting on something, then you're going to have problems. I mean, if you're driving at night and you lose your headlights, obviously that's a very big deal. So you want to make sure that that's very secure. Now, next we have this piece, the large red wire. This is going to go to the positive on our battery. We have this, which is actually going to be plugged in from the back of the bulb, the old bulb. And then we have this piece. Let me show you this. This piece here, this is going to get plugged into the ballast. And then you also need a ground, so we got to figure that out. This, I believe, plugs directly into the bulb. And then you have this, another few, that these are actually going to go over to the other side of the vehicle. So we have to make sure we have enough space for that. So next, let's actually get the bulb in. Before you install these bulbs, you need to prepare them. And we have this ring here. This is the ring off of our lock ring off of the original headlights. Now, this needs to get onto here. But if you see here, obviously, that's going to be way too big. And then if you do it from this side, it's also just, it's going to be way too big. So it's not going to fit. So what we need to do is actually take this assembly off of this light and then slide this over and then put this back on to get it prepared. Now, on here, you're going to see on this ring, it'll say open and lock. So what you want to do is basically just grab it as gently as you can. I just kind of put it between my thumb and my forefinger, and then you want to turn this. Okay. There you go. And it pops off. Now, carefully take your foam off, and this should slide up just like that. Very good. And then get this ring on. Now, the ring, if you can read any words or symbols, that's the direction you want it to go on, right? So here's all the words. Slide it into place. Very good. And then get this assembly and slide it back on and lock it in place. So we have that. Kind of just find where the groove is here. There we go. And then twist, and you'll kind of hear a pop. There you go. So once that's locked in place, you have this here. It's kind of trapped in between your two, which is perfect because once you put this into the lamp, you're going to twist it on and it's going to secure it in place. So let's go install it. So we have our prepped bulb. And let's go ahead and get this in place just by very carefully sliding it in and then getting it to rest correctly inside here. You just kind of got to twist until you feel it seat. There we go. And then slide your lock ring in. Awesome. There we go. So our lock ring is in place. The bulb's in place. If you look inside the front of the lens, you can kind of see where it's at and make sure it's seated correctly and everything looks good. So at this point, we have to do a few different things now. The rest is really going to end up being cable management, getting all of the cables in one place, making sure they fit correctly, they're not sitting against anything hot, and reinstalling the battery, and then obviously doing the passenger side. But as far as this is concerned, you want to get your, here, we'll get the cables out of the way here for the relay, and the one that goes over to the other side, just kind of throw that across the motor. As long as your motor isn't hot, get that across the motor, kind of out of the way here. Very good. And then let's get the rest of this hooked up. So the obvious one is going to be plugging your big headlight connector, get that out of the way, headlight connector into this big blue one. All right, so just slide that in, make sure it clicks. There we go, we're good on that. And then just kind of set that aside. We'll deal with managing that cable later. This, as you know, this is going to get put onto the positive side of the battery. So we'll set that aside. We're happy with that. This is going to connect into the ballast. And we also have a negative. So grab the red piece from your ballast. This is the red connector. And we will connect that in. Very good. We're going to find this negative. I'll probably end up putting it right in here, one of these two. Probably right on this, honestly. So that's going to be, here's your headlight, And then if you look kind of around the side under the fender, that's where I'm going to connect that. And then I have this piece. Where's this here? Let's get this out of the way. The other piece coming out of the ballast, where you have this big black box here, these are going to go to your headlight. So if you take your, obviously you have, it looks like some of them match, and that's because you're ready to actually put them into each piece. So you want to connect those in and just kind of find the corresponding connectors. There's that. And then lastly, you have this, and this actually comes out of your relay, and this is for the other side here. So you want to just throw that there. Okay, very good. So we have all of our connections for the first headlight. And so again, we have out of the relay, we have this going into our ballast from the red connector. Coming out of the ballast, we have this black box, and they connect into the back of the headlight. And then you have this third one, which comes from the relay directly into the headlight. All right, so that's all your connections. Now, the rest is honestly, like I said, going to be cable management. So I see we have a hole here, but that's actually for our battery holder. But we have a nice loom here. This is also, actually that's going to be antifreeze. We might want to avoid that. But we have some looms down here as well that are going to be electrical. So what I'm probably going to do is kind of slide things over here, make some room, and just kind of connect everything with zip ties. Now it's important that none of this gets moved around a lot or jarred. You want to just really make sure that these wires are going to be protected. So if you do have extra loom like this, it might be a good idea to actually slide some of this into place. If you don't, electrical tape will work, zip tie everything off, but I'm going to do that, and then I'll kind of show you what I did afterward. Now I went ahead and put the battery tray back in underneath the newly painted tray, and I did that because I want to take a look at this battery and and see kind of my borders, my outside borders, and what I'm able to work with. So here's what I ended up doing. Now, does it look amazing? No, it really doesn't, but that's not the goal. The goal isn't to make it look good. The goal is to make sure that it's not touching other things that are either moving, vibrating a lot, or are super hot. So that's what I did. So I just kind of zip tied everything and kind of just zip tied it against the inside of the fender to make sure there's not a lot of movement. And the same thing with my ballast connectors down here. And it looks like I'm totally clear. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my brackets back in. I'm going to throw the battery in and just kind of make sure, check clearance again, make sure everything's good. And then, take the battery back out because we're not gonna put the battery back in until we're done with the other side. But just make sure the clearance is good. If I'm happy with it, then we're gonna move on to the next one. Okay, awesome. So it looks like there's actually a lot of play on this tray on all sides. So if I look on the left side over here, there is the ballast connectors are not touching at all. And then same with the front, and then of course same with over here with our relay. Nothing's touching up here, and I knew that wouldn't, but either way, it's good. Now I'll show you where I did the negative connector, and obviously when we're done, when we're totally done, we still have to put this on, which is our main connector for the lights, but we'll deal with that later. So let me pull this out. Now if you see here, just like I had talked about earlier, I used just one of the body mount grounds to ground it out. So that's what I ended up doing. I did I just unscrewed it, slid it on the bolt, and do it afterward. So what that means is you have your steel interior fender, or the interior support. Then you have your the connector that was always there, and then you want to put yours in, and then put the screw in. The reason is that this, I don't know what this is grounding out, but it may or may not be more critical than your headlights. So we want to leave it the way it is and just kind of add on this next connector. So leave that there, and then let's go do the other side. Now as far as the moving of the wiring and making sure that it's kind of fed through correctly, I went ahead and did in front of the radiator. And you'll find, and let me grab this camera, I'll readjust. What you'll find here is you have this connector. This is the connector that goes to the other side. And I went ahead, and there's a hole here. I went ahead and put that in front of the radiator. And then I'm going to connect it to the mount that holds on to the hood to kind of keep it away from the front of the radiator. And then back in, through the other hole, similar hole as this one, to get it over to that headlight. Why am I doing that? Well, I'm doing that mostly because I want to make sure that we're not getting this anywhere near the fan. Okay, so that will obviously spell disaster, and the rear is going to be hotter than the front as well. So that's going to be another reason to do it. So run that in the front, do as many zip ties as you can to ensure that it's not touching anything hot, and then get it over to the other end, and we are going to put the other one in. Now I know it's really tight over here, but this is the driver's side, and here's the air box. Now I had removed this previously just to look at things and kind of inspect things, and it's a huge pain, but you can actually get away with not taking this out. So I want to show you through here where I mounted things on the driver's side. Now on the driver's side, there is a hole in a vertical support that I just basically ran another screw through. Now if you have a steel screw, that's fine, but if not, it's actually very easy to access the rear side of it if you have like a nut and bolt with like a lock washer or something. So that's good. As far as the cables, now these are the cables that are coming from the other side of the truck. Now again, it's going to be plugged in just like the other side. So this is going to go into the ballast, this is going to go directly into the headlight, and this is going to be obviously your ground. Now there is a ground. If you're looking at the airbox here, here's the front of the truck up here, and then over here is the fender. Right underneath the fender, there's another connector that's just like the other one on the other side of the truck. So just use that one. Now what we're going to do is we're going to bring in the other headlight. We're going to plug in our plug-ins from the ballast into the headlight, from the other side of the truck into the ballast, and then that leaves this. Now this is your original connector, right? Now on the other side, we actually plugged this into the relay. It doesn't get used on this side based on my understanding of the directions. You don't use this. So you're going to want to make sure that when you go and zip tie all this stuff together, that this is protected. So get electrical tape, wrap it around this, wrap it in front of these connectors, because this is going to supply power. So you want to make sure that this is protected and zip tied and away from anything that's going to cause movement, any vibration, any heat. So just kind of get that away, tuck it away, and let's go get our headlight and put that in, and then we're going to connect everything up. So here's our headlight. Let's see if we can kind of get this in here without damaging it. All right. Perfect. Slide that in there. Awesome. So make sure you have some space on this lock, and then make sure it sits correctly. All right, that looks like it's seated. And then just twist this guy on. Awesome. Very good. So we didn't have to take out the airbox. You can kind of just maneuver it in. Once you get right behind the headlight, it's actually a lot of space. It's over behind the airbox, between the airbox and the fender. So now that that's in, we're just going to reconnect the rest. And again, that's out of the ballast into the headlight. You see these two connectors here, so I'll just do them right now. So there's that one, red to red, this blue to black. So let me do that one. There you go, blue to black. And then this one is going to come directly from the cables that came over. So here's this one. So this is the cable that came from the other side. So snap that in. There we go. Very good. And then you have this connector that came from the ballast. So that's connected. And now all we have to do is connect this negative right here connect this negative to obviously a negative, a ground, and then zip tie everything up. Again, make sure that our connector from our old headlight is in, and then we can just see how much we like our new headlights. Now here's what I did on the driver's side. I went ahead and just created my own ground. It was going to be too far of a stretch to go reach underneath the fender based on where I put the ballast. So I secured the ballast, I put in my ground, and then I just connected everything and kind of pushed it off to the side. Just made sure there was no vibration, or no areas where it'd be vibrating, and just kind of connected everything together. Now all we have to do at this point is just go reconnect the battery and see if we like them. Let's do it. Now for our final connection, I'm going to want to go ahead and put the final connection onto the smaller post on the front of the battery. Now, two things on this. Make sure you're doing this before you put the negative cable back on, obviously. And then just it's another opportunity to make sure that all your connections are clean. So go through here and just kind of scrub them off if you feel like they need to be scrubbed. And then, if you're noticing that this is pretty loose, which I kind of do, I'm going to go ahead and hook these two together and just put a zip tie right here. If you're one of those people that are really kind of particular about the way the inside of your engine bay looks, then kind of figure it out as you go and make it look the way you want it to look. But honestly, I'm just gonna throw a zip tie in here and make sure it's secure, and that's what's most important to me. So I'm gonna do that, reconnect the negative, and then clean up your area, and let's go see how they look. Okay, so we are back in the dark and ready to flip them on. So here's the new headlights. Awesome. Okay, so a lot brighter, but the bigger difference is the color temperature, if you will. These are much more like natural color, just regular good old light, as opposed to that kind of yellowish tinge that we had before. So that's basically the color I chose. I chose 6,000 kelvins. You can choose a whole array of different colors if you like the stuff that is, that bluish kind of tinge, or if you want to keep that yellow, you can do that too. So kind of shop around online and you can see this kit comes in a bunch of different colors, but this is the color I chose. It's the 6,000, and it's nice and bright. I like how bright it is, and it's very clear, kind of a crisp looking color. So I'm happy with it, but that's it. So we are done. I'm just gonna talk a little bit about some pointers on here, and then we are all set. Now a few quick things before we wrap up. Now the kit does not come with any zip ties, okay? I used probably 10 zip ties in here. So you're gonna wanna buy zip ties of varying sizes. I used some big ones underneath the grill, and then some smaller ones on each side. And then it also doesn't come with any mounting screws. So it comes with the little brackets that you saw, but it does not come with the actual screws that I use to secure them into the vehicle. So definitely consider that. You need to buy these things, or else you really aren't going to be able to complete the project. Secondly, take all of the cables that come with the kit and just kind of lay them out inside of the wheel well, or excuse me, inside the engine bay, and kind of make sure everything fits before you start drilling holes and putting everything where you think it should be. If you do that, you're going to really eliminate putting holes into your truck that don't need to be there. All right, so other than that, that's really it. I wanted to do a huge shout out to Ahmed Gosha. Thank you so much for being my first patron. I think that's awesome. If you are interested in becoming a patron, you can join me. Just click right here and join me on Patreon, and also subscribe if you like this and you want more. Definitely subscribe, and thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to put them in the comments below, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.